part of our coming of age ritual here is surviving questions from panelists. So we'll start there and then move on to seniors and the broader audience.
Excellent job, Jill. Very, very well done. So the first question that I have is going a little bit back to the cognitive side of things. And when people invent new things for themselves in order to understand what's going on, and they don't really feel like they have it until they've fully grasped it or invented it. Is this sort of invention an invention out of nothing, or is there a sort of use of other things during this? And how would that look like in the spiritual life?
Yeah, I definitely don't think that, it's by our own accord that we're able to come up with these ideas. Obviously, it's only through the guidance of God that is possible. And so I think we should, I think there are things around us that we can use to kind of invent these things and tools, and having mentorship or authorities over us kind of helping give us these tools as a guidance to find ways to mature. If that answers your question.
Yep, thank you. And then my second question, this might be a little bit beyond the scope of your thesis, in which case you can just say,
Okay.
You don't need to answer that. It is, so to what extent does Christianity differ from, say, secular ways of looking at the world or other religions and how they understand the world in terms of this sort of wisdom stage? How does it differ for Christianity specifically?
I don't really know if I'm answering this correctly, but I guess my understanding from a Christian point of view is that we are more able to recognize that we are imperfect and that it is only through God in which we can be perfected and gain this wisdom. And so I don't really know if that goes for everyone, and I think that might be more unique to Christianity.
I'm very proud of you, Jillian. I have one question, just I think personal question, but Dr. Raz kind of mentioned this, but you are finishing a rite of passage right now. So how has this shaped you and led to spiritual growth in your own life?
Well, definitely has been some breakdowns along the way. So I think I've just learned how been able to recognize that it is something that's out of my comfort zone, but it is also being able to see my siblings go before me and do it, and looking at people that have gone before me and accomplished it has really helped. And so that was one way I was able to overcome it, but it's shaped me personally to know that I can do things like this, and I can get up in front of an audience, and I think and think about theological ideals, which can be tricky sometimes because there's that fear of heresy. So maybe, so that.
Great answer. All right, I have another question. I was thinking about this rite of passage of suffering, and I had this professor at Baylor, Ralph Wood, who said in class, it was a really uplifting moment. He said, if you're not suffering right now, you're going to, and if you're suffering right now, you're going to suffer more. And I thought, well, that's great. Life is hard. And so I guess my question is, throughout Scripture, in this world you'll have trouble, and we're told not to grow weary and lose heart. Mm-hmm. How is the Christian view of suffering different than other views, and how do we spiritually grow? Talk a little bit more about that. You did start with that.
I think one thing that's comforting is there are so many passages in the Bible about our suffering, and how we have to work through it, and how it's inevitable, it's going to happen. And although that can kind of, that feeling you had at first too, it would be scary. Honestly, it brings me comfort because I'm not in this alone, and it's the fact that we have the ability to turn to God that is so unique and so amazing, and that those sufferings can help us grow. That is a step to growth, and I think that that's really cool because every time that there is something that goes south or sideways, I know that something good's going to come out of it. There's always that outlet of hope or light at the end of the tunnel, which is very comforting.
Great job. Great. Great job, Jill.
So you talk a lot about the importance of spiritual growth happening within the context of community. How would you speak to the person who says, I really value my relationship with God, but I don't really need the church or any sort of community?
Well, I'd probably try to find a good way to say that they're wrong, but I guess, like, I think that people, if they can see an example of a community working together and how it's benefited someone close to them in their lives, and they can see, oh, the community actually does have a big impact on that person, they might be more encouraged to seek after that themselves.
Awesome. One other question. You talk about the importance of trials and suffering being able to be a stimulant for spiritual growth in our lives, but how would you say, what's the important thing to keep in mind when we enter those seasons to keep us going, to embrace that rather than to try to run from it and take the quick way out?
I mean, I know this sounds like a Sunday school answer, but I really think that prayer is the best way to do that. And just remembering that really at any point you can talk to God through those things, and it works in mysterious ways, and it can help you see that God is there, and it can make you keep working through those hardships instead of just avoiding them.
All right, we'll take questions from seniors. Morgan is always so ready to go.
Hi, Jill.
Hey, Morgan.
So, you did a really good job. Okay, so I kind of have two mini questions. Okay, so the first one is, were there any other lessons we learned at the senior retreat that you could apply to your own spiritual life? And the second one is, all the girls in your senior class, or all the students in your senior class, we are all going through the same range of maturity. Is there a way that we have been able to help each other go through the spiritual maturity that you're talking about?
Yeah, I think at the senior retreat we focused a lot on communicating with each other, seeking after that we have those adults around us, which is a unique thing at Live Oak. We have adults that are there for us, that we can talk to, and that'll love us through things. And so I think that was one of the biggest things I just got to see again, was just that I'm so blessed to have all these amazing people around me. And then remind me your second question.
Oh, so is there a way that the senior class helped you with your spiritual maturity, or
yeah.
that we can help each other with?
I definitely think this senior class has been a good example of that community that I'm talking about. We have a lot of people that are always there offering to support, and we go through things together like senior thesis, and I think that that's been a good process that kind of has made us stronger together. So,
Jill, had a really great job. Super proud of you.
thanks.
This could be totally on the scope of your thesis, but I just have a quick question. So, I think in our culture today, we have this big push for self-growth and working on yourself, and it's all focused on us. So, as Christians, how do we go about that? And does working on our spiritual maturity and enduring that and growing our relationship with God actually help us become the best version of ourselves, or can we do both faithfully?
Yeah, I think definitely that concept is a very prideful mindset of that it is all our doing, because it's not. I mean, God did in fact give us the gift to grow and have that self-growth, and I think that we should, give that to Him whenever, we succeed in something. It's not of our own doing, it never is. And so I think that that's where our culture becomes twisted, is we think that it's, this crazy thing we did, or we manifested this to happen, and it's all our doing, and that's just not true.
Hi, Joe. That was really good, really wise, and a really good topic for today's day. As one of the students who did not make it out of the maze and gave up kind of halfway through, well, that may not be a perfect representation of all of our spiritual lives. What would you say to students who are reaching their junior, senior year and are maybe in a rut, or are spiritually young, or feel spiritually weak, and they don't have the motivation to go on, yet life still pushes them on to go into college? What would you say to students who are ill-motivated or feel weak or not strong in their faith, yet still know they're going to be making like major life decisions through college?
Yeah, I definitely think that recognition of that is the first step. And then seeking after like mentorship and stuff like that, because it can be, I don't know when this, like, I feel like even more recently, it's just such a weird concept to like say, hey, I need help, or like I want advice on this. Like, I know I hate doing that. It makes me feel like so out of my comfort zone, but I think encouraging people to do that, and then if you see a friend that needs to ask for help, kind of showing them how it's like it can be a very fruitful thing, and it is like there is a safe environment to do that, especially at Live Oak. Anyone at Live Oak that's struggling with that, like, we are so lucky, because that is a huge thing here. We have so many people that will talk to you, and so, yeah.
Hey Jill, that was so amazing.
Thanks.
A lot of people were talking about your illustration at the beginning, and so I guess I was just wondering, because like I remember whenever, like you said, you were, after you got out of the maze, you were still like, oh, did I figure it out? Like, did I get out? And I had the exact same experience, and like I even felt a little bit like I cheated because like I didn't figure it out before I asked for help. And so I guess I was just wondering, in the context of spiritual maturity, like, do you think that this like process of maturing always has to be like something that we're seeking, or like can it happen accidentally or like in unexpected ways?
I think it's a process that like you look for where it's happened, and then you apply it to grow more, like apply it to your life to grow more. And kind of lost my train of thought, but is that a good enough answer? Okay.
Open up to some non-senior questions now.
Excellent thesis, Jill. That was really great.
Thanks, Julia.
Thank you. Yeah. When someone we love reaches out for help, how do we as a Christian community respond in a way that encourages that person's spiritual growth without invalidating that person's struggle by providing unwanted religious guidance?
That's a really good question.
I can read it again if you want.
Yeah, I might need you to in a second. But I think, I think that's one thing I was really thinking about while writing this, is how do you help someone without invalidating what they're going through. And so I guess I'm thinking of like sending them to people that are also going through similar things that can be kind of like, they can then become like accountability partners in that. And then, there could still be someone over them helping them, like guiding them through that isn't struggling with that, but definitely like finding like a group of people that are all struggling with that can be really helpful.
You gave me the microphone, right? No, I'm just kidding. I'm so proud of you. Amazing job.
Thanks, Card.
And something that I feel so lucky about is that I've gotten to watch you grow, and I've watched you like this be cultivated within you from the people in your community, whether that be parents or whatever. But my question to you is, as a Christian community, how do we help others in cultivating this outlook on life within them?
I guess just trying to like recognize when others are struggling, and well, he told me to talk about him as much as possible. So Mr. Cruz is honestly a good example of this in the Live Oak community, because as frustrating as it can be when you're just trying to get to class, he'll come up to you and say, how are you doing? And he recognizes when something is off in someone, and just that constant reminder that there are people there for you can be really helpful in this process. And just, that's my answer.
Hey, Jill.
Hi, sorry. No, you're good.
You mentioned using milestones like college graduation as like sort of like a rite of passage. Do you have any more like examples of things that can be used as like rites of passage as like transitions into like spiritual maturity, or like do you think that's maybe the best one?
I don't think that's the best one. I honestly think that you can really use anything that you're trying to overcome. I mean, it could literally be something as simple as, playing a basketball game, and like there's going to be all these times that you mess up, and it's not going to be the best
when Coach Howard yells at you, but no, but also just like using those like moments to realize, you know, I can't control everything. That's something Coach Howard always tells us, you know, you can't control everything. And just kind of any experience that, you know, is going to be any maturing process, any hardship that you're going to have to overcome, using that to just grow and discover new traits of yourself that you can use in the future. It could literally be any daily experience, honestly.
All right, we've got one last question here for you, Jill.
Hi, so I was wondering do you think that for the spiritual maturity, do you think that there would be other ways that for like other religions like Muslims, do you think that that would be any different? Do you think that some things would change, or do you think mostly it'd be the same?
Yeah, well, for this thesis, I was definitely just focusing on Christians because that's kind of, well, I'm a Christian, so. But I think that there's probably, you know, there's so many ways for people to grow in virtue and to become more strengthened. And so, yeah, I can't really speak to that though because I didn't do research on that. But yeah, I think that there probably are ways that, you know, anyone can grow and, you know, become a better person, so.
All right, Jill, you're done.